If you're anything like me, you enjoy a good game with a camera that follows the main character. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, third-person games to play in 2019. Number 10 is World War Z. Now, the most obvious comparison one can make is to Left 4 Dead. This is a third-person Left 4 Dead type game, however, with one big difference. The number of zombies that can be rushing you at any given time. This is a game that seems to exist because of that scene in the World War Z movie where the zombies climb each other. And that might sound like a negative comment, but I don't mean it as a negative comment. I mean that as a positive comment. And I'm not going to say that this is as good as Left 4 Dead, because A, I haven't beaten it yet, it just came out. But I am going to say that it's not really that far in my experience with it. It may go downhill, but I've really been enjoying it thus far. Now, some will likely look at this as a limited game due to its linear nature. However, if you, like me, are looking for something that scratches that Left 4 Dead itch, this does that and then some. It's probably not going to replace Left 4 Dead, but it certainly carries that torch, I think, quite respectably. Like I said, World War Z just came out, and it's out for Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Number 9 is Control. This is the latest game from Remedy, who brought us such titles as Quantum Break, Alan Wake, and Max Payne 1 and 2. Control very much looks like an evolution of the ideas that were seen in Quantum Break, however the setting is very interesting to me. It's set in a skyscraper in New York City called the Oldest House, which supernaturally has a much larger interior than the exterior of the building. The protagonist, Jesse Faden, basically got supernatural powers after an incident in her childhood and is seeking answers. While seeking those answers in the government organization that's set up in the Oldest House, a supernatural foe invades and the events of the game ensue. The game is reportedly structured in Metroidvania format, and though there is a plot, it's also apparently designed for you to create your own personal narrative. Now, I don't know exactly to what extent that means. We've seen it mean various different things in the past, but in theory, the idea of having supernatural powers in a supernatural place and being able to basically go off and do whatever you want could be pretty darn fun. However, I am also quite interested in the story too. I mean, it's a Remedy title, so it's going to have an interesting world that's filled with interesting people or entities, and I'm really looking forward to when Control comes out on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on August 27th. Number 8 is The Division 2. So, The Division 1 kind of launched in a state that a lot of people weren't happy with, and they did change things over time, and it got better, but I think that bad first impression didn't really help. Also, a lot of the content in the first game seemed unfocused, but fortunately with The Division 2, a lot of lessons seem to have been learned. This is a game that is pretty well focused. It takes a little while to get going. The beginning is a bit corny, but once you're off and running, whether you're solo playing or you're matchmaking or you're playing it with a friend, it's just an engaging sort of wasteland to exist in. The kind of wasteland that very recently became a wasteland. It's not that you're having to look for evidence of the society that fell. It fell pretty recently. And while politically there's a lot of arguments about this game, I think that as far as gameplay and just the overall fun you have getting engrossed in its world, as someone who really wasn't a believer in the first one, I'm kind of honestly converted a bit by the second one. It's not that it's substantially different, it's that the fat has been cut, so to speak. And if you absolutely hate the first Division, which a lot of people do, I don't know that you're going to like The Division 2, but if you were lukewarm to it or even enjoyed the first Division, or are just looking for a third-person shooter where you can roam in a really well-developed world and get into a lot of interesting combat situations, this is that game. The Division 2 is out now on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows. Number 7 is Gears 5, or for a lot of us, Gears of War 5, even though that's not the official title. This is an obvious continuation of the story that started in Gears 4, putting Kat Diaz in the role of protagonist this time. JD Phoenix, Delmont Walker, and Marcus Phoenix are all going to be in this game as well. And interestingly enough, Rod Ferguson, the studio head, said they felt like Gears 4 was kind of a Mad Max Fury Road situation where the story kind of centered on outsider Kate Diaz, who is of Locust descent, and they kind of just wanted to go further with that dynamic. I'm excited. It seems like it's shaping up as a second act in a trilogy, and Gears 4 was a really enjoyable experience. I'm not sure they're ever going to capture the lightning in a bottle that was the first couple games, but the fact is the franchise has staying power, and I think that there's still a lot of Gears story to tell. We don't have a date for Gears 5 yet, but it will be coming to Microsoft Windows and Xbox One sometime this year. Probably expect more at E3. Number 6 is Days Gone, an exclusive on the PlayStation 4 that at first glance, it looked a lot like World War Z was basically trying to do what Days Gone was doing, but as it turns out, Days Gone is pretty damn different in every respect other than it has large hordes of zombies that come at you all at once. Days Gone is a game that takes place in an open world, it's post-apocalyptic, and you'll be spending a lot of time just out in the middle of nowhere, experiencing a dynamic weather system, a day and night cycle, with zombies called freakers that are stronger at night, and a motorcycle you only get one of, and let's say you run out of gas, you're going to be walking to the next gas station and walking back if you want to keep that thing for the rest of the game, and you probably do. Well, it does look like the wilderness is quite detailed and alive. It also looks a bit unforgiving. You won't want to always take things head on. A lot of the times you'll want to use stealth or lay traps or any variety of other actions you might be able to take. And let's be clear, that's very good. I like the idea that there's a lot of different ways to accomplish the goals in the game, and this is a game that I'm very much looking forward to. Days Gone is coming exclusively to PlayStation 4 on April 26th. Number 5 is Kingdom Hearts 3, the highly anticipated conclusion to the series. It's a game that is really dense with a very specific and sometimes impossible to understand lore that is, depending on your perspective, either a good thing or a bad thing. Now, I haven't beaten Kingdom Hearts 3 yet. It's a game that I have to take in small doses because I'm taking in so much information every time. It's just, I like to try to understand it, but I am still playing it, so that's a testament to how good the gameplay in the game is. Obviously, on the surface, Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG, but it has a very specific type of gameplay built around combos, combo moves that you pull off with other party members. And honestly, even if you don't understand the story, the combat, the music, the atmosphere, the visuals, just everything about the game is just so incredibly satisfying just to experience. It's one of those games that's just kind of a joy in of its own, and for something that you can explain to a lot of people as a convoluted story that is hard to understand is actually pretty impressive. Kingdom Hearts 3 is out right now on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Number 4 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that this looks to me, from what we've seen, kind of to be the Force Unleashed 3 that we've all wanted, but at the same time it may not be totally extreme in the ways that the Force Unleashed was. For instance, what it looks like right now is something that plays with canon in the way that Rogue One played with canon as opposed to the way that Force Unleashed played with canon. That is to say, it looks to use something that has been established in the films to tell a new story. That story is of a Padawan who is in hiding after Order 66, the Jedi extinction event, goes down in the Star Wars universe. One of the things I'm particularly interested in this game is that it seems to be structured in a sort of chase film structure. You're hiding out working at a scrapyard when you're found using your force powers saving somebody at a workplace accident, and it triggers this manhunt. And for me, that's the kind of story I would love to play through in the Star Wars universe. That has me really excited, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be hitting Microsoft Windows, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4 on November 15th. Number 3 is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. This is a game that really goes down like a fine wine. Now, it's not unfamiliar to anybody who has played a Dark Souls or Bloodborne, just any From Software game in the past. A lot of that formula remains right here, especially in the structure of the world. However, the notable switch up is in the combat and in your movement. At this point, the observation has been made a lot of times that it's a lot like a rhythm-based game, but the combat is oriented towards blocking, parrying, and attacking at very timed intervals that you have to figure out as you fight in order to break the posture of your enemy. And honestly, it's a really novel addition to the sort of way that Dark Souls works. I love the combat in this game, although it's very unforgiving. What else I gotta say I just absolutely enjoy the hell out of is the grappling hook. The games industry needs to take a more Oprah approach with grappling hooks. Every game should have them. You have a grappling hook. You have a grappling hook. I'm of course exaggerating, but God, I love jumping around with the grappling hook in this game. It's also gorgeous, has beautiful music, its sound design is phenomenal, and if you have any inkling you'll like this game, you're probably right. It's out currently on Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. It's a must-play. Number 2, speaking of must-plays, Devil May Cry 5. There's not a lot of explanation needed as to what kind of game Devil May Cry is. It basically spawned lots of games trying to do that kind of hack and slash. This game takes place a few years after Devil May Cry 4, and let's just go ahead and say, in every way it lives up to what Devil May Cry is. And let's just go ahead and say, like, the style of graphics that they chose to implement after a very long time between games in some ways was a little bit of a risk, and I think it really paid off. This is a gorgeous game that benefits so much from indulging the stylistic elements of it, and the fluidity of this game, not just in the animation of characters, for instance, but just the way everything is just feeling as though it's a constant flow. Now, even though the risks were taken weren't massive ones, and they did pay off, what we're left with is a Devil May Cry game, and it just comes off really well. It's a beat-em-up that is absolutely worth the wait. Devil May Cry is out on Microsoft Windows, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4 now. And number 1 is Resident Evil 2, the remake. I mean, you could go back and play Resident Evil 2, the old version, if you really wanted. There's nothing stopping you from doing that in 2019, but let's just go ahead and say that this remake is just something special. It's basically an entire reimagining of the game. In some areas, there's little liberties taken with the story to make it flow a little bit better, and I think it does. A lot of the time when we get that kind of a thing happening, the streamlining ends up not being that great, but here, I'm really satisfied with basically everything that they've changed and everything that they've kept. The experience is technically totally different. It plays much more like a recent Resident Evil game as far as the actual controls and camera, but the more survival-oriented, resource management-oriented type gameplay elements are as plentiful as in the original, which is, in my opinion, one of the things that needed to stick around for this to be Resident Evil 2. What I would call the Resident Evil 2 remake, either to somebody entirely uninitiated to Resident Evil or as an old longtime fan, is just a massive achievement. It's just a brilliant game, and I think everybody should at least try it. Resident Evil 2 is out now on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows. Couple of quick bonus games for you. The first being Judgment, a game that's both a spin-off of the Yakuza series as well as retaining the director. It is currently out in Japan. It's going to be hitting worldwide on the PlayStation 4, June 25th. Watch Dogs 3, which is a very likely E3 announcement. However, we obviously don't have any information on that. That is speculation on our part. However, given the timing and the fact that Watch Dogs 2 was a lot more successful than the first, it's probably fairly informed speculation, so let's look forward to that. The Surge 2, which is very much kind of techno Dark Souls and does definitely have its own identity, but owes a lot to that franchise. It's a lot more colorful, a lot more electronic, and the sequel is coming to Microsoft Windows sometime this year. Shenmue 3, which is the long-awaited final installment of the Shenmue series, which is something that I think nobody was ever really sure we were ever going to get, but it's coming to PlayStation 4 and Microsoft Windows on August 27th. And finally, Biomutant, which is an open-world, kind of mascot, platformer, hack and slash, but kinda not. It looks a little more serious than that, and has character creation capabilities. Honestly, all the footage I've seen has made this game very enticing. I'm excited to play it, and it's coming to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows sometime this year. What third-person games have you played this year, and which ones are you planning to? Also, which of the games we mentioned are you most excited for / have enjoyed the most? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.